Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of bluegrass. You've enjoyed live bluegrass at Guitartown CT concerts in Hampton, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hall, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. Well, hello. My guest today on Got Grass is Jason Carter. Jason has played fiddle with Del McCoury Band for over 30 years, which seems hard to believe, and the Travelin McCourys for 15 years. He's won 3 Grammys and is a 5-time IBMA Fiddle Player of the Year. He's a fine guitarist and singer, and last fall he announced his engagement to marry Bronwyn Keith Hynes, who's another wonderful fiddle player that we've talked to on this podcast. So welcome, Jason, to Got Grass.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you, too. It's kind of early. I have my early, deep morning voice going here, but I'll try to talk normally.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So I want to start out just offering congratulations to you and Bronwyn. Bronwyn has played here at Guitartown a few times, as you played a couple of times too, and she's just a lovely and talented person, and I wish you guys all the best. Wow, that's great.
Thank you so much. We're both really excited.
So she's a beautiful and talented young woman. You must feel like a lucky guy, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah, I sure do. Yeah, man,
Yeah.
we've dated now for around 6 years.
Oh.
It was 4 6 years, I think. Yeah, so yeah, and during that time, she's just been very inspiring to me. In a lot of ways, and musically, especially musically, because her work ethic is just so strong. Uh, it makes me want to play more music, and it has made me play more music. Just being around her, and that's what we do a lot of times in the evening. We don't watch a lot of TV or anything like that, but we play music together. So that's a lot of fun.
Where did you guys meet back then?
Oh, you know what? I'm not sure. The first time that we met, uh, it would have been at a show. Um, I remember she several years ago. She used to come up and play. She would come up and sit in with us, and I had just met her at some festivals, and she would come up and play fiddle, and I I loved her playing. Even back then, she was fearless, and
Hmm.
it was great. I would call her up to play on something, and I know she had never played, and it didn't matter at all. It seemed like it didn't matter at all to her. She jumped up there and just crushed it always. So yeah, it was really cool.
I remember talking to her. She was our first podcast interview, and she said, when she first went to Nashville and sat in with these bands, probably yours and others, she said, I was so scared going up there, but everyone just accepted me as a musician, and it was easy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, if she was scared, I could not tell. Yeah, because she played just beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys, I guess, are planning your wedding, right? Is that what you're up to
Yeah,
now?
yeah, we're actually. I have a call with a wedding venue here later on this morning. We're still trying to pick out the place to get married. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Is it going to be in Nashville or around?
it will. Yeah, it'll be in Nashville. Yeah,
Right.
this is our home now. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. She was born in Charlottesville, Virginia, and spent some time in Vermont and Boston, and now her parents live in California. I'm from Kentucky. My family still lives in Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
but I've lived here for a long time, and this is our home now. So this is where we're going to do it.
Yeah, yeah. She seemed very happy. She seemed like she just loved Nashville. which
Yeah.
is which is good. Yeah.
Yeah, well, when she moved here. Was shortly after that was the pandemic, so she didn't get to go out and before that, she got to go to some jams that were happening, and we both loved that. And but then the world shut down,
Right.
so she didn't get to really experience Nashville. But in that time, and since she's been here, she's joined the Molly Tuttle Band, and uh, uh, very in demand player around town.
Yeah. Well, easy to see why.
The move worked out good for her, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, if you're going to have a wedding, are you going to have a bluegrass band play at your wedding, do you think, or just
Don't
more
know.
traditional?
I don't know. We've talked about a couple bands or a couple musicians and to have some people play, but it's all in the works. So I don't know I don't know what all we'll be able to have yet. So I would love to have. We would. I'm sure there'll be some kind of music there. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're not getting an exclusive today from you about who's playing at your wedding.
Yeah, if I do, I would tell you, but I have no clue. Yeah, yeah.
So,
Believe me, I wish I knew.
yeah, I know it's good to get all these things ironed down and not have to worry about all the little details.
Right,
But
right.
but so talk a little bit about your new album, Low Down, Hoedown. What's the significance of the name, the title?
Oh, the title came from a tune that Danny Barnes wrote. It's called "Hoedown for My Low Down Rowdy Ways." And when I was looking for material, I I called Danny because I love his music, and I asked him if he had any songs, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I got one called "Hoedown for My Low Down Rowdy Ways." It'd be great for you." And I was like, "Oh, that's the greatest title I've ever heard." I wanted just for that's what I was going to call my record. And when we recorded the song, uh, Danny actually overdubbed his part. He was in Seattle, or not Seattle, but Washington State. Anyway, we recorded it, and I had my friend Dirk Bentley come in to sing with me on that tune. And there's a part of the song where we play. It's like an extended solo. Everybody plays, and Dirks had said something in there. He said, "Now that's a low down, hoedown," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, that's the title. That's the title of the record right there." So
Yeah, that works well. That's a great title.
that's how it came about. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're doing quite a bit of singing these days. Was that a conscious decision on your part to focus more on singing in your own work?
Absolutely, yeah. I've sang all my life, but not so much uh, in the last several years. When I was a kid, I played with my dad and I played guitar and I sang in the band, and I really enjoyed that. And then when I got with Dell, well, he's the singer, so all
Right.
my focus went on to playing fiddle. But the Travelin McCourys, I started singing more, and yeah, I had a bunch of songs. I had a bunch of songs, and I wasn't sure if they would be right for the Traveling McCourys, and or if those guys would want to do some of them. And it just wound up. Uh, well, I tell you, even partially, I watched Bronwyn record her first record, and it kind of inspired me to start working on mine.
Hmm.
So that was kind of a big part of it. And then we were playing a lot of music around the house here at that time, and she would, all these tunes that we did. She and I both worked on these, uh, like even coming up with some of the arrangements. Some of that stuff works itself out in the studio, but a lot of that stuff kind of works as that we worked it out at home. Uh, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
She mentioned that you've been doing and will be doing some more performing as a duo. So that would be interesting because she also is coming into her own as a singer. I mean, she used to sing with Mile 12 a little bit, but I
yeah,
always thought she was a good singer and should sing more. But of course, they had a lead singer and other singers, so you play your part.
Yeah,
But I
right.
think you guys together that would be a great singing playing combo. I can't wait for you to wait to hear you.
We did a little tour, just like a 5 day run, but it was just the two of us, just two fiddles, and I played guitar on a couple things, but we sang and played together, and I absolutely loved that. We had a great time doing that. But now also she has a record out. I have my record out, and we were talking last week about trying to do something together, but it seems like we both have a lot of irons in the fire right now. Uh, but I don't know. Maybe there'd be a chance to do like a weekend or something here and there uh, throughout the year if we could make it work, or we could go
Uh,
out and do like a combo show and both play together. Because she's touring some too on her own. I've done some dates on my own to support my record, and I've really enjoyed that. And I know she's enjoying doing that too. And it would be fun to do something together. You know.
yeah. That's amazing that you, such a veteran of bluegrass scene with famous bands, were so inspired by Bronwyn, who's so much younger and from a different kind of background. That kind of warms my heart to hear that.
Well, I'm telling you, man, it's really cool to see somebody that that has the fire, and she has the fire. You know, really does. So it's very inspiring.
Yeah. So I usually start the interviews with a simple question, which I didn't go to today because we went right to your wedding plans and stuff. But
Yeah, yeah.
my question is a simple one. So if you had a day off with no guitar or fiddle around, and nothing on your schedule, how would you spend it? Like, what would be your ideal relaxing day with no
Well,
music?
yesterday, I had that, and I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I drove 2 hours and went fishing with a friend of mine, and I got
Oh, nice.
home. Oh, we didn't fish till dark, but we got it. It was raining and windy and cold. It was cold part of the day. It was really nice part of the day. But anyway, we went fishing, and that was really nice.
Any
Yeah,
fish come home with you?
man, we did pretty good yesterday. We caught some smallmouth bass and a few largemouth and spots. And my buddy actually landed a 5 pound smallmouth and then one that was 4.5.
Whoa.
We it was a stellar day, you know. Yeah,
I
man.
used to fish a lot as a teenager, and that was our favorite fish up here. Where we would go fishing in these ponds and stuff were small or largemouth bass were like just fun to catch and fun to eat.
Absolutely. Yeah, we threw everything back. We did
Yeah,
the smallmouth. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So
So
yeah,
all the musicians I've spoken with over the this podcast, which has been a few months now, grew up surrounded by music, either from the church or a family band or just listening to the Opry on the radio. So it sounds like you grew up in a similar situation with music.
yeah. Well, I'll try to make this quick. I have an older brother that's 3 years older than me, and he plays. He's more like of a jazz guy and plays saxophone, keyboard, clarinet. He plays guitar, plays everything, you know. But anyway, so my dad, when my brother was born, and when he was in the cradle, my dad was played jazz. He played. He, I guess, had just got out of the. Hadn't been too long. He was in the army jazz band
Mhm.
and was playing locally around Kentucky. And then when I was born, my dad had joined uh, a bluegrass band, and so that's what I heard in the cradle.
Yeah.
And the band that my dad played with is the name of the band was called Buffalo Creek Express, and there was a fiddle player who would have been a great uncle of mine through marriage, and his name was Curly Parker, and he's kind of in certain scenes he's kind of like a legendary fiddle player. Uh,
Hmm.
I was given lessons, and I mentioned his name to like an old time player, and she told me she said, "Oh my, it's Curly Parker. Me and a bunch of my friends were obsessed with this tune of his, and it was pretty heartwarming to hear,
Yeah.
There's a rounder record that he's on, and there you can find some stuff on YouTube. There's a couple rounder records he's on. One he's playing guitar with Pee Wee Lambert, and then the other I forget the name of it, but I think it's called Songs of the Ohio or something about along the Ohio River. And anyway, Curly was on that.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Did
anyway, that was what I heard when I was growing up, and then my dad took me around to. He was playing a lot of music around that time, and then when I was 8 years old, his friend came over to the house, and his friend had a son that was a little older than I was, and he was playing guitar, and and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I thought, man, this kid's playing guitar. I didn't know kids could do this,
mm,
And
right?
if this guy can do this, maybe I can. And I asked my dad if he'd show me, and he said, yeah. And so he showed me. First song was "House of the Rising Sun," and it had a million chords in it. But I got it, and I remember he then his dad, then his my dad's buddy came back over, and then I was the kid there showing him playing guitar for them, and I thought it was really cool. And then I started playing a lot with my dad. We'd have jam sessions at the house, and we'd go to different jams around locally. And all growing up, there was like a weekly jam session at this another friend's house, and my dad and myself played. I played in a couple bands and played in a band with my dad, uh, and then when I got out of high school, I joined up with the Goins brothers from Eastern Kentucky, and they toured mostly east of the Mississippi.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've heard of the Goins brothers,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah.
anyway, I was with them for 6 months, and then I landed a job with Del McCoury. We just happened to be playing that Spigma Festival in Nashville, and the McCourys were moving to Nashville. Tad Marks was playing fiddle with them at the time, and he knew that I kind of wanted his job.
Mhm.
He knew that I really liked Dale and loved that band, and he came to me and he said, "Hey man, I know you want this," and he said the McCourys are moving to Nashville, and I'm not making the move, so this job's coming open. He said you should go ask Dale for the job. So man, I beelined it to him and gave him my number, and sure enough, a couple weeks later, he called me up. He said, "Man, you were the first to ask for the job, so you're the first to try out." And I was the
Nice.
only one he tried out. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you remember your first paying gig, like how much you made or
my
anything
first
like that?
my first paying gig was with a bass player who was also my school bus driver, and this guy was at every jam session that we played. His name was Ed Coffey, and we played we played all the time together, and it was always bluegrass. And somehow he got a gig with a lady that played piano.
Oh boy.
and he called me to play guitar, and I don't know what it was. I don't remember if it was like for I don't know. I don't even know what the gig was. I don't remember, but I
Yeah.
don't remember what any of the songs was. I couldn't have been like 10 years old, but he gave me a few dollars, so that would have been my first paying gig.
That's good. Yeah. I was talking to one of my podcasts, I was talking to Doyle Lawson, and he was talking about his early days playing with Jimmy Martin and how he said, Jimmy said, Doyle, if we play a gig, you make $15 that day. And if we don't play, you don't get paid. And that
Yeah,
was the deal starting off. And of course he was excited like you were to play with Dell. He was thrilled. So
yeah.
he was he was happy with the $15 when he got it, he said.
Well, when I got the job with the Goins brothers, I was going to school to be a draftsman, and the school I was going to, they it was pretty high success rate of like when you graduated, they would find a job for you that it was a pretty a pretty good paying job.
Hmm.
And I went 3 semesters, and I did really well. I, you know, uh, had great grades in college, and but I only went 3 semesters, and I got this job with the Goins Brothers, and I left that opportunity to go play music for $80 a day,
Oh,
and that was only the days that we played. So that
yeah. That
well,
was that was pretty good money though, wasn't it, for those days?
I think it was well below poverty level, but
Oh,
probably
below poverty level. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember.
yeah, yeah, it was
Oh,
because there wasn't a lot of they didn't have a lot of work.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Did your family at any point push you to go on and like get a real quote unquote real job, or were they happy that you discovered and loved music and wanted to pursue that?
Man, my dad, I think my dad wanted to be, uh, would have liked to have been a musician and would have liked to have went to school. My brother went to college for music, and my dad's parents wouldn't go for that for him. And I think when me and my brother came along, my dad was at the mindset that anything that we wanted to do, he was going to support it because he worked in a steel mill all his life, and he didn't want us. He wanted to see us do what we wanted to do. Uh, so they were very supportive of us. Uh, and I remember one time, it's kind of funny to me, uh, that I uh, I went home. I had been in Nashville for a while and was doing pretty good. Doing all right, for a bluegrass musician. Sideman, I was making a pretty good living. And I went home, and my grandma, she uh, she asked me when I was going to get a real job. And I thought, wow, I bet I'm making more money than my grandpa ever made in his life.
Yeah,
she
right.
just she just did not understand that you could play music for a living. You know, they just didn't understand that. I don't think. Uh, so that was the only time, but I never got that from my parents.
Hmm.
And I think it was because of I, my dad wanted that, and his parents didn't really support him. You know,
Right.
doing that, chasing that dream. So,
What do you think it was about Del McCourry's band that you found so appealing that you just had to play with him? Like, was there something
yeah,
special that you loved about that music?
I think it's his guitar playing and his singing. I think that's the focus. I think that's the driving force behind that band. Uh, and I've always thought that. And like I said, I was a guitar player growing up, and I tried to play like Tony Rice, and as everyone did. And then when I heard Del McCoury, uh, man, it was like, wow, here's another guy that's got this great sound. And the harder I listened to it, it was I could that whole rhythm thing everything was wrapped around the guitar to me.
Mhm.
And I still think that, man, his guitar playing is he doesn't play much lead, but his rhythm is second to none.
Yeah.
And that feels like where everything revolves around his guitar. You know,
Yeah.
it's that some kind of driving sound. And it's his timing is impeccable. It's just great.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I remember Tony Rice saying the same thing. Because he played here a few times. We would sometimes have a few minutes to chat. Being the promoter, I didn't really have much time to hang around and talk because I was too busy cleaning up and stuff. But he did mention how much he admired Jimmy Martin and Del McCoury as like the greatest rhythm guitar players ever
yeah,
in bluegrass.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
to me, it was Tony and well, Jimmy Martin as well. But uh, I was around Jimmy a little bit, but more so, especially during those days, I listened to Tony and Dale.
Mhm.
And Tony had all my. I don't know. I really like. Dale had great bands. Even my favorite Dale McCoury bands would have been definitely Without Me. in the band, and I love those fiddlers that he had: Sonny Miller and John Glick and Warren Blair, Tad Marks, uh, and there's a slew more that played with him that I didn't know about. Steve Thomas is one of my all-time favorites, and he played with Dell. But and then you have like with Tony, the bands that he had: Sam Bush and that recorded with him, and Jerry Douglas. But Bobby Hicks is huge influence on me, and Vassar Clemens, same thing. Uh, Ricky Skaggs were my favorite fiddle players, and Sam Bush.
Right.
Yeah,
The Del McCoury band that's together today has been the same members for a long time, right?
it sure has. Yeah, uh, Alan Bartram plays the bass, and the only change that's been in the band since I've been there since '92 is Alan. Mike Bubb played in the band for 14 years, maybe 15
Hmm.
years, which it sounds crazy when you said that I've been with the Travelin McCourys for 15 years. Because it seemed like the stint with when Mike was in the band was a record breaking at the time. For a band to be together that long.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, we've had the same lineup for a long time. So that tells
Yeah,
you a bit about the McCoury family and Dell and
yeah.
do,
I guess there's just a lot of friendship and loyalty, right, among the
Yeah,
band members that keep it together.
yeah, right, right. Yeah.
Do you ever stop to think, wow, I've been with this one band for 30 years? I mean, that's when you look back at your life, you don't, I guess like me, you don't realize how old you are until you say, wow, I did something for 30 years. Holy
Yeah, right.
mackerel.
It's kind of hitting setting in now. I turned 51, and it's like it hits. Yeah, it's like wow. I don't feel like well, I guess I feel 51. I don't know what it's supposed to feel like. I feel great, but
Yeah, you were there before, so you don't know what you're supposed to feel, I
yeah,
guess.
right, right. Yeah, but it's crazy that it's been that long. Yeah, yeah.
I remember you played here a couple of times. Once was with the McCourys, Traveling McCourys, and it was a tribute concert to Bill Monroe with Peter Rowan.
Yeah,
Was I think Tony Rice didn't show up. I think he was not feeling well or something. He was on the bill too. And I remember Peter Rowan really kind of took on the persona of Bill Monroe with you guys. It was an unbelievable show.
you
I don't know
know,
if you remember that tour was I don't know if it was a short tour with that lineup, but
I may have a video of that show.
mm,
I'm not sure, but it seems like would there be a possibility that there could have been a video of that?
it's possible.
Like
A
maybe
guy used to
a
some
back.
guy used to come video most of the shows at that particular venue back then. So I have
And,
an audio recording of it, but I don't have
yeah,
any video. But
and I
but
know
I was
we did a couple, and I remember a couple of those being really good, and I thought that might have been one of them, but I'm not I'm not sure. But yeah, that was
yeah.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. I was just struck by how much Peter Rowan just became Bill Monroe, because you did all the Monroe songs, and
Yeah,
it was probably actually better in a sense that Tony wasn't there. I think he was on a different kind of musical plane than you guys would have been, and I just thought it was a beautiful combination of you and some of the harmonies and things were just. It was a magical night. I remember it very well.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the fiddle.
yeah.
So at some point switched from guitar to fiddle as what, a kid, teenager, or
I was probably around 15 years old. Uh,
yeah,
there was always a fiddle, and we had a fiddle and mandolin around. My dad played mandolin and fiddle and guitar, and that was around the house. Well, there was a banjo too. Uh, I think it got sold sometime uh, when I was pretty young. But yeah, the fiddle was there, and I think what got me playing the fiddle was when I heard Del McCoury, and I was around 15 years old. around that time, and
Mm.
of course at that time I was, well, I was young, and people would say, "What are you going to do?" And I was like, "I'm going to play in the Del McCoury Band." That was kind of my answer until I uh, man, it didn't hit me till like I graduated high school, and it's like, man, what's going to happen now? I can't play with any of these bands. I'm stuck up here in Kentucky, and how would I ever get in a band with somebody from Pennsylvania? It's like it, and then I got the job with Melvin. But anyway, uh, getting back to the fiddle, it's like I picked up the fiddle, and it was like, uh, well, let me back up again. From saying that that's what I was going to do, my dad, I had never seen, I'd just seen Dell play on a TV show called Fire on the Mountain, and I would hear some of the records on the radio, and I would make tapes, and and I got a couple records, and my dad had seen Dell live, and he told me, he said, "Hey," he said, "Well, if you're going to play with Del McCoury, you're going to have to either play bass or fiddle, because I'm pretty sure his sons play mandolin and banjo, and he plays guitar." So, and it's like, "Oh, well, cool. I'll play fiddle," and I got to fiddle, and I started working on those fiddle breaks on his
Yeah.
record. That's basically, my dad showed me some stuff, and um, a few tunes, and of course, I still listen to Tony Rice and all that stuff. But the majority of what I was worked on was Del McCoury music, trying to learn to play the fiddle like John Glick or Warren Blair. Yeah.
It's funny because I grew up listening to jazz. My mom was a like a stride piano player and played all the show tunes, and I played some piano and some guitar, and to me the fiddle seems the most awkward, uncomfortable, impossible instrument to even pick up. Did you feel like a natural affinity towards it from
Man,
day one?
it was really weird. It was really weird, but I played the mandolin, so that I knew that the left hand was the same as what was on the mandolin, and I I could figure the left hand stuff out. And to this day, when sometimes I'll teach and give lessons, and I won't be able to tell them what to do with the bow. I have no clue. It's just you try to make it. I just
Oh,
always try to
that's
make it
funny.
sound like what the other person did. But I can remember trying to learn even like Bobby Hicks breaks, uh, and like it's like everything. It was a lot of double stops, and I just thought that's what you were supposed to do, and so I I always tried to play. A lot of times, I would try to play double stops anytime that I could, because it seems like that's what he did.
Mm, right.
And I still can't do it too well. I have
I was going to ask you, have
I
you
struggle
mastered it yet?
still struggle with the intonation. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I
So, in talking about the fiddle and bluegrass, do you feel like the role of the fiddle has changed over time from, 40s and 50s style of fiddle playing to contemporary bluegrass fiddle playing?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's still the same role.
Yep.
Uh, it seems like it anyway. At least with our band, but our band is based kind of off of those bands.
Right.
You know, so I would think it's kind of the same thing.
The same, yeah. Um, so you teach, you just mentioned you don't really know much about the bow hand, which I find hard
Yeah,
to
yeah,
believe,
right.
but that's a good one. But do you have any technical advice? Because we have fiddle players that listen to this podcast and that I play jams with and stuff. Any technical advice, simple for beginning or intermediate fiddle players to get a little more bluesy or bluegrassy sound on the fiddle? I find a lot of the fiddle players around here, especially are classical players that maybe went to college or went to Yale and trained classically, and then they hear bluegrass and they go, "Oh, wow, that's great music. I want to play that." But they they have a hard time loosening up and getting that kind of bluesy, bluegrassy sound. Do
Man,
you have any?
uh,
That's a big question, I know, but
yeah, I don't, other than, what was the biggest help for me was just playing along with the records of the people that I liked. And I would play over and over, and I would try to make everything sound like what they played
yeah.
for the longest time, and uh, honestly, I would love to get back to that where I had time to sit down and try to learn more stuff like that again. Uh, nowadays, whenever I'm kind of lucky in that sense, because most of the tunes that over the last several years, when I'm learning most tunes, well, I shouldn't say that because I do sessions with other people, but is listening to I listen to Dell sing, you know,
Mm.
and that's another big part of how I learned to play, because when I joined with him, I was 19. All right, so for instance, anyway, to answer your question, I would say that's how I would do it. That's how I would approach trying to get that to learn to play a little more bluegrassy, but I would just play along with them and try to make it sound like what you hear. Uh, but what I was going to tell you, and it's still now, as I listen to Dell's melodies uh, and try to copy what he's singing to learn to for the first step of learning the tune.
Mm.
Years ago,
Yeah.
years ago, he would drive the bus, and I would sit up and ride with him, and I'd play fiddle. And I thought I had to be bothering him, but uh, to have this scratchy fiddle playing in the middle of the night while you're driving, yeah, it keeps me awake.
Ah,
You know?
that could right. That could be a compliment or a put down. You don't know,
Nice way of
right?
putting it, but he would I would ask him, how should I play this? And he would never say you have to play it like this. He would be like, you play it how you hear it or how you want to play it. You don't have to play it like those guys on the record. You've already got that. Now you play it however you want. And but if I would ask him, he'd say, you could do it like this, and then he'd sing it to me.
Ah,
Yeah, and that was key, man. That was a big key because it was he would sing those melodies slow where I could understand and pick some of that stuff out. Uh, so that was a big help.
yeah. I find in listening to a lot of these contemporary young bluegrass fiddle players, a lot of them have been to Berkeley and other colleges and studied, and they actually can read music and play off the the music. Um, what was I going to say? I got the line of my question here, so I'm going to move on.
And I tell
I
you,
w
a lot with those players from Berkeley and a lot of the young players today, they have I don't know. I hear something. Well, I hear something in everybody that I don't have, but I think that's just like what makes everybody unique. But
right.
see what I love it. I love it all. I love hearing all the fiddle players that's coming up right now. There's so many great young players. Uh, uh, that's just incredible. This Christian Ward and Alex Hargraves and
Yes.
Julian Pinelli. Uh, I could go on and on.
Yeah. No,
Bronwyn
you're right.
Keith Maddie Denton, uh, Laura Orshaw. I mean, there's just so many, and they're all good in their own right.
Yeah. Yeah.
They all
I,
have,
I
they all have their own thing that's really cool.
I did. I recovered my train of thought here. You mentioned melody, and I was thinking that for people learning how to play bluegrass on any instrument to solo, um, I think the key, like you say, is to learn the melody and be able to play it and phrase it, whatever instrument you play, because that to me is the beginning of a good instrumental solo in bluegrass. And I think, a lot of the classical trained players who are so good maybe sometimes forget that you don't have to do this virtuoso thing on every solo. You can just play the melody and it's just fits,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what a lot of the older bluegrass players did, and that's man, if you listen to Bobby Hicks play, man, he always has the melody in there. He's always playing the song.
Right.
So, yeah, and Stuart Duncan, when he's playing bluegrass, man, he's well, when
Yeah.
he's playing anything, he's the king. But his the
Yeah.
way he interprets the melody is incredible. Plays around it. And, yeah, it's the greatest.
I'm going to change topic a little bit here. Bluegrass and country music has been influenced a lot by white and black musicians over many, many years. And today, bluegrass and country are pretty much white musicians, more female than they were before. But I think the culture was pretty much white male. There are a lot of young musicians around today trying to kind of reconnect the music to its, multicultural roots. So is this a topic of discussion in the bluegrass world at all? How, I don't know. I'm not saying anything to do with racism or anything, but I mean, bluegrass has become a pretty white music, but a lot of the roots of it are from black musicians. Or would you not agree?
Yeah, well, I guess so. I really don't know.
Mm. Yeah,
I've always heard of like Arnold Schultz with Bill Monroe and was a big influence on him.
yeah,
And then I'm sure it is. I'm sure it has been an influence, but the way I look at that, I think it's whatever anybody was listening to. What was Bill Monroe listening to? What was Latin Scruggs listening to? What were the Stanleys? What was Mac Wiseman? What was
hmm
uh, J.D. Crowe? And what was the music of the day? And you listen to all the early bluegrass a lot of those bluegrass records. They have jazz standards that they do instrumental, so they were hearing that stuff maybe on the radio, and uh, you can go back and find Farewell Blues. You can go back and find Bugle Call Rag, and I think all that what you're hearing comes through. Is
yeah.
influenced by. You know,
It's interesting. We've had a couple of, especially there's this guy up here lives in Rhode Island named Jake Blunt. You might have heard of him. He's a
yeah,
banjo player, black guy, pretty young. He's studying ethnomusicology, getting his PhD. But he's been trying to kind of, among other people, trying to reconnect with a lot of the music that old time and slave music and gospel and work music and all the stuff that, as you say, it's all depending on kind of guess what you grew up listening to, how you absorb all the influences. But there certainly are a lot of influences in bluegrass and country music.
right, right, right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty interesting to think about what everybody has listened to, and and try to research that. It's
hmm Yeah. It's fascinating. I was kind of spurred to that question by this whole controversy about Beyonce and her Cowboy Carter album and how it's being received by various factions in the music world. It's interesting to just see what the reaction is to it. I haven't actually heard the whole thing. I've heard a couple of songs on it, and I know she's from Texas, and she's trying to make a statement, and she's a great talent, and it's just interesting that that's coming along right now.
yeah. You know what? I haven't really heard it. I have heard maybe like part of the song, and I thought it was good. And I see a lot of people posting their version of this, uh, but I have the Texas Hold'em song is what I'm talking about, and
Right. Yeah.
I thought it was good. What I've heard of it, I liked it. You know, so
The tradition that you kind of grew up in, which is pretty common among bluegrass musicians and country, I guess any kind of music, is that you kind of grew up surrounded by it in your family or your church. Do you think that tradition is still um, active or as strong today as it was, say, when you grew up? Like the family church kind of tradition growing up in music and just be it's part of your life all the time? Or do
Uh,
you think things have changed with the modern world?
I think it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just depends on where you're at, and probably the same as what it was for me back then. You know, it's like I was lucky, man. I was lucky that my dad could take me around to places to play music, and then after, you know, say like my junior and senior year of high school, it was my uncle that took me around. We went to all these bluegrass festivals, which were great festivals back then, you know, like in Lexington, Festival of the Bluegrass and Frontier Ranch and those kind of places where you know, it was around. You know, J.D.
Yeah.
Crowe was there, and Tony Rice and Doyle and Osborne Brothers, Jim and Jesse, the Johnson Mountain Boys, Seldom Seen, and um, but you know, so I think it was, I think it, I was kind of around that some, you know, I mean, I was in driving distance of seeing that, and then there was local jams, and I know there's still local jams uh, all over the country. You know, I just think it's if people take advantage of that, you know.
There seem to be a lot of very young players. I mean, I'm up in Connecticut, so I'm not really part of the Southern Nashville, Kentucky scene, but a lot of young players seem to be able to play bluegrass really well at like age
And there's
7 and 8.
so it's easy to find, man. Like you can get on the computer and look at all these YouTube videos and watch that. And then there's people that give lessons, and people can sign up and take lessons from their favorite players. Man, I couldn't imagine having that opportunity when I was a kid to be able to sit down and play something and have Brian Sutton critique it, you know. Uh,
Right.
and that's readily available right now, you know, through Artist Works, or to have Alex Hargraves or Daryl Anger or whoever, you know, take a lesson with Sierra Hull.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh,
Um, yeah, I mean, YouTube, I guess, really has revolutionized learning music for people because not only can you sit and hear it and see it, you can play along with it and you can push it and play along with it again. I mean, it seems like I know in the old days you would listen to records and try and slow them down, back in the day and
yeah,
try to learn a solo, but now it seems like YouTube has really
yeah,
made a huge difference.
yeah. And it's funny. I get frustrated, like because I was pretty good about moving the needle. I could move that thing back just where I needed it, or rewind a tape really fast over and over and over to play a lick, to learn a lick, and now to try to do that on my phone or on the computer, it's like teaching an old dog new tricks. I think a lot about like how young people are doing this, and just how quick they would be about being able to back something up just to the right spot. To
Right,
whatever.
right.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges these days of playing live music? I mean, I know the pandemic really put a hurting on a lot of um, venues and promoters and even bands not being able to play really for almost 2 years. And then the whole issue of, getting paid for your music and Spotify and streaming. I mean, the music business has really changed a lot. Um, what's your take on how the music business is these days? I mean, it's still a difficult way to make a living, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's I think nowadays you have to you have to get your record uh played so people can hear it, and not so much for selling the record. It seems like you don't make a whole lot off of record sales, but uh it seems like it's in hopes to that people will hear it and they'll come out and buy tickets to your show, you know.
Hmm.
And I think that social media is a very huge part of things too, because there's so many people see you. You can get in front of people and they find out through people, you know, through TikTok or Facebook
Sure.
or Instagram or whatever form you're on. But I think that's huge. But it's all in hopes to sell tickets to get people to come out to see you, and that's a hard thing, you know.
Yeah, that's what I mean, I've been doing this not as long as you, just as an amateur promoter, as my hobby for 17 years. And so I've talked to a lot of bands, and yeah, especially a lot of the younger bands trying to get established. It's very hard to make it,
Right,
um, because the cost of everything, travel and eating and sleeping and everything is so high, but you can't get paid really very much more than you did 5 years ago, if so. So
right.
it seems like a real struggle these days, especially right now.
Yeah,
I hear that.
yeah. You look at it as a success if you paid your band and didn't go in the hole, even though you didn't
Yeah,
make.
right. Which is a tough, that's a tough way to keep going. I mean, you can do that
Yes,
for a while,
great.
but
I mean,
no, you got to pay that.
yeah.
So you've played in a lot of albums, a lot of artists. Any special memory that would stand out to you as like a really once in a lifetime amazing either song or performance or whatever among all the ones you've done? Any special memory?
Man, there's a lot.
Oh,
Uh, the most recent was I recorded with Sam Bush. He was on the session anyway. For the We recorded with my friend Zeb Snyder this week, and uh, it was just the three of us. Um,
oh,
Todd
nice.
Phillips was going to play bass, and he got the flu, and we Zeb kept the session, and we just did it three, and they're going to overdub Todd, um, which I think will be just fine. Uh,
Yeah,
Great rhythm guitar player, and between him and Sam, they had everything locked down. But that was really fun. It's to be in the studio and hear your heroes coming back through your headphones and hear that sound of their instrument coming back through your headphones, and you look across the room and there they sit. It's pretty exciting, and
mm,
it's I still get excited after 30 some years playing with the Del McCoury Band to hear Dell's voice come across or hear him hit that guitar, and you hear it coming back through your headphones. It's really exciting.
yeah. Still got the magic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's funny because I spoke with Todd Phillips. He was one of my podcast episodes, but he was sick. He said, I can't do it. I've got the flu. I can't do it for a few weeks. So that must have been the same thing he
Oh,
had when when you were talking playing with him. He just
maybe so. Yeah.
couldn't manage. This was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. He said he just couldn't. I don't know. Anyway.
Too. We I have a new record too that's about to come out, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like I have a bunch of heroes of mine on it, but I myself and Michael Cleveland are doing a record uh, together, and I think our first single's coming out in May, but Sam's on it. Jerry Douglas is supposed to come in and overdub some dobro this week, and different singers. Daryl Scott and Sam Bush played and sang. Brian Sutton, Cody Kilby, Sierra Hull, and just to have and John Cowan. First time for me to record with John, and man, it's just really cool to hear your heroes. Uh,
Mhm.
I got a lot of them on this record as well. So
Yeah, that sounds pretty amazing.
and Mike, of course, Mike, he's as
Yeah,
great
well, he's yeah
as you ever dream of.
incomparable. Yeah. So I'm gonna end here because I know you got to get on to your wedding planning, but I'm gonna end with a non-music question, which people seem to have trouble with. And it's a simple question: is there anything that people might be surprised to learn about you?
Uh,
Like, I don't know, anything. It's a wide open question.
well, I don't know. I told you earlier about I like to fish, and I guess the other thing that I really like to do is play golf, and I'm no good. I, always, I golf a lot with Brian, as much as I can with Brian Sutton,
Yeah.
and I tell him a lot of times that I played this for you. I played for years. I'm no better than what I was when I was 19.
Well, from what I hear, I don't really play, but from what I hear, it's one of the toughest things to master, maybe even tougher than music. I don't know.
It reminds me of playing fiddle. It's that
Yeah,
it's yeah.
yeah,
As
yeah.
you as much time you it takes a lot of time. Yeah.
Right,
It just
right,
takes a lot of time.
right,
Yeah.
right. Well, I'm going to let you go. I know you got to go plan your wedding, but I do appreciate you being on the podcast and chatting today. It's been a lot of fun, and I wish you all the best in your marriage. And maybe you and Bron will come up to Connecticut sometime and play. You're always welcome.
Hey, I sure hope so. Let's make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, take care then. Have a good one.
Stay in touch, Chris. Thanks for having
I
me.
will, Jason. Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.